And now I invite you all to be seated as we have the honor and privilege this morning of Ellen Brooks sharing her living epistle with us.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
I am not a public reader, so just bear with me. My family and I moved to Teaneck in September 1979. I started middle school with everyone else, so it wasn't hard being the new kid. Around that time, I was becoming more and more inquisitive about God and had many questions. This was when my mom thought it was time to find a church where my questions could be answered. Born and raised a Baptist who married the son of an Episcopal priest, she thought it easier to find a church where she would not have to battle my grandmother and my aunts. So she saw an article in the Suburbanite about St. Mark's that also noted her friend Tony Marquez was a Sunday school teacher. So it was a win-win for us. It's an Episcopal church and she knows someone who's a member. Joining the church that was filled with kids my age was like Christmas for me. My brother John is 14 years older than I, and so I basically grew up as an only child because he split his time between boarding school, his mom's house, and occasional visits with us. So making a new group of friends that I didn't go to school with was perfect. I immediately joined Sunday school where Allison Davis claims she was one of my teachers. Getting older, our huge group was entering into the age of confirmation, of which I believe we were the largest group to date, but don't quote me. We had a blast as our group interacted with a confirmation group from St. Paul's in Inglewood and Church of Atonement in Tenafly. I remember one of our group trips was to the same camp that they filmed Friday the 13th. You know, we had a ball with that, especially the boys who snuck in at night to try to scare the girls in the girls' cabin. That was fun. I also became an acolyte and clearly one of the tallest next to Gordon Mayer and Brian Chambers. I typically carried the crucifix. At that time, there were many of us, so that we had various tasks at the altar. There could be 3 of us on a typical Sunday, or maybe 4 or 5 on high holy days. I do remember one time I had to carry the gospel book with Reverend Lucinda Laird was reading the passage. It had to be during the holidays. She was swinging the incense around the book, and at one point she got a bit too close to my face, and a nervous laugh came out. So clearly that was the last time I had that duty. Years moved on, then came college and life, where typical teens and adults start to attend church on holidays only. However, I always came back to St. Mark's for those occasions. On July 17th, 1999, on one of the hottest days of the summer before St. Mark's was renovated and had air conditioning, I married my love, Michael. The church was packed, and those little ceiling fans really did nothing. So we did have a few people that had to go do a wardrobe change or kind of air out their clothes and let them dry before going on to the reception. And then a few years later, we got air conditioning. So maybe I should have waited a little bit. Still attending for major holidays in 2004, Michael and I moved to the Poconos in Pennsylvania. In 2006, we came back to St. Mark's to have Sydney christened, followed by her sister Charlotte in 2008. Again, the pattern of major events was still the theme of attending church. As the girls were getting bigger, I thought it was my turn to take them to church so they would have their questions answered and try to capture the experience I had as a child growing up. Commuting all week from New York to Pennsylvania was not going to allow me to add an extra day to commute back to St. Mark's, So I found Christ Church in Stroudsburg. Their church was still had kneeling rails like the St. Mark's did before the renovation, and it felt like home. The service was still like it was when I was growing up as well. I was happy to share that with the girls, and girls truly enjoyed it. Eventually, we decided to move back to Teaneck for what was truly a better quality of life. Being closer to home with a shorter commute allowed the girls to participate in more activities, allowing us to be there for most of them. It also saved my mom and her car miles from driving up and down Route 80 every Sunday, returning home on Friday to help us out during the week. When we came back, it was a huge emotional adjustment for me to move home. Moving back to Teaneck was not in our plan, and it really was not in my plan. It took me a year to come back to St. Mark's after moving back, but that was the right time for me emotionally. I would join my mother on occasion and start getting back into the rhythm of church. Once again, seeing so many who watched me grow up at St. Mark's gave me a very welcoming feeling. One Sunday, it was Phyllis Allen's turn to give her living epistle. Now, while I enjoyed hearing others share their stories, it was Mrs. Allen's story of watching the women on the Altar Guild work quietly behind the scenes wearing their big hats that truly hit home. It's funny because a few Sundays after that, Rosalind Medley approached me to join the Altar Guild, and without hesitation, I said yes. This was the start of my truly coming back home to St. Mark's and being a part of what makes our church home, one that truly embraces and welcomes everyone. I am proud to say I'm also following my mother's footsteps, being a member of the Vestry. It's so funny to see how life guides you and always brings you back home.
Aww.